Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome to our latest webcast that we're bringing you from Travel Weekly. And I'm thrilled to be joined today by Robin Dellett, who is the CEO of Imagine. How are you, Robin?
I'm very good, Lucy. How are you? And thanks for having me.
Oh, it's an absolute delight to have you on. And of course, I kind of accosted you because at the ABTA convention, a few weeks ago now, I was on stage interviewing Elsa from Donata. She mentioned that she'd increased their sort of stake in your business, and it reminded me I hadn't spoken to you for a while, and so I got in touch and we arranged to do this interview. So we'll come on to that if we may, Robin. But that was obviously the catalyst. But I think it'd be really interesting just to talk to you about how Imagine has gone from very small beginnings to where it is today. So can we get you to go back and just talk to us about how it all started?
Yeah, so as I say, I'm kind of not used to doing these. I stay away from these. Don't know why. It's just been through choice. But the story, I guess, my story has been fascinating. Most people think of me as coming from the travel industry, but actually, I didn't get into the travel industry until I was in my 30s.
Okay.
So I spent the first kind of decade after leaving school in construction, and then what I learned from construction, or started to learn the seeds of, is selling, how to sell, how to create relationships, partnerships with other people. And then I fell upon travel by pure accident. I'd kind of got bored. I knew construction wasn't for me. So I decided to have a look around and eventually fell upon travel with a company some will remember, most won't, certainly the youngsters won't, a company called Gemstone Travel.
See, now that's
Um,
really already annoying because I do remember that. So
you do remember them. So that's in the good old days of teletext holidays,
yeah,
the analog system where we would scroll for hours, see an
yeah,
advert on a page, then wait for it to rotate. So that's really where I would say I did my travel apprenticeship. Very old school. We worked horrendous hours, and it was a very small knit of team, and you were very close in that environment to all elements of the business,
yeah,
from how you marketed the business, the product element of it, which was simpler in those days, much more simple. And then obviously answering the calls
yeah.
to the customers and selling. So
So busy and hard work, but I guess you learned a lot very quickly.
yeah, you learned a lot, and you were able to be around people that had been in the industry a while, and that was really helpful. So that's where I think my addiction came, and I use the word addiction purposefully because I think that's kind of what travel is to me. It's an addiction. So what that part of my life did is it kind of gave me the confidence to go into business myself or myself with a number of people, and then fast forward a little bit. That's kind of where the whole business of fast track came from. So it was believing in an understanding of how to run a business, understanding that sales was going to be the leading force, having the confidence of being able to sell because day one, grassroots, you're going to get on the phone and start selling holidays, and then from that start to build up a team. So business has never been that helpful to me from the off. So Fast Track's a great example where we started trading that company back in 2001 in
Yeah,
January. And obviously in 2001, we had 9/11 within 9 months of trading. And these are the things, as you kind of fast forward in time, that were probably the most helpful situations to occur to me as and when they did to help me understand how businesses pivot and kind of work around events that happen over the world, which travel kind of suffers from that on a regular basis.
yeah, of course, of course.
So we started trading Fast Track as a bucket and spade holiday company. We focused on particular regions of the world. It was Greece and Cyprus. I still remember it very well. And then obviously with 9/11, the calls stopped. You're 9 months into running your first company. Your cash flow is going out the door. You've made no profit. And you decide at that point, are you going to react and do something to mitigate the situation? Or are you going to wait for it to pass by? And I think because we didn't have the option of waiting for it to pass by, the only thing to do was to find out how would you mitigate a situation where nobody wanted to go on holiday.
Yeah,
So I took a couple of days out, and my theory in that business was, although people don't want to go on holiday, there is one element of travel that I believe is more hobbyists, where people are more bloody minded, if you like, which is ski. So I
yeah,
felt that people would go on a ski holiday because they don't necessarily perceive it as a holiday, it's more of a hobby. So we quickly turned the business around. We became very capable of understanding ski, partnering with the ski suppliers of those times.
And had you sold ski up to that point just a little bit, or not really?
I'd never skied in my life. Knew
You hadn't
nothing.
skied.
No, knew
Gosh, I
nothing
think
about
that's where I
skiing.
really came across you actually at fast track ski as it was at the time. But that's remarkable then. So you just saw it as an opportunity rather than it being a passion.
Yeah, I mean, one of the good things about our industry is it's very open. So although I hadn't skied, although we didn't sell skis, ski formed part of Travel Weekly, as much as other products did. So you could see there was an opportunity. And I had friends that skied and they seemed to go multiple times a year. And
Yeah.
nothing they did related to anything I was seeing as trends in travel. They just seemed to be disassociated from the general travel trends. So it was really a case of you haven't really got an option, you've got nothing
Yeah.
to lose. And
Yeah.
now, how quickly can you create this capability in terms of building a web capability, finding partners? And we did it really quickly. And it turned out, again, to fast forward that, that was kind of the saving grace for us. We started to become very capable. And then the Fast Track brand ended up with ski as a category. That saw us through the winter months. So not
Yeah.
only did it help us through that initial post 9/11 period, but it improved the overall P&L of the business forever because we'd sell summer sun in the summer, and then our winter period now would be filled with ski holidays. So we had
Yeah.
an annual capability. And then from that, my entry into cruise came from P&O deciding that they wanted to launch a brand that was going to appeal to people that don't do cruises, and that
Was this
brand
Ocean Village?
was Ocean Village. And the reason I loved Ocean Village is similar to ski, I'd never cruised, uh, didn't know anything about cruising. And the fact that the customers they were looking to attract had likely never cruised, they would be slightly kinder to me because I think at that point, people perceived cruisers as a certain characteristic. It's a specialist product. It's
Yeah.
very difficult to get into. The customers are probably unforgiving. Their knowledge is fairly considerable. Ocean Village customers, the perception was they were like me. They were new, they didn't understand it, and therefore, if I got terminology wrong, any mistakes we made, probably the customers wouldn't see them, and if they
Yeah.
did see them, we'd
Or
probably
they'd
have a
be
bit of a laugh about it. It would be
a bit
quite
more forgiving.
light-hearted,
Yeah.
more forgiving. So we became immediately one of Ocean Village's, if not one of their leading agents in that first year of trading. And then from that, you start to gain confidence about cruising. You then bridge over to, P&O cruises, and you then expand into the other cruise lines
Yeah.
over a period of time.
And out of interest, at any point in this stage, did you start skiing and start cruising? Personally,
Yeah,
did you start to like
yeah,
these kind of holidays?
definitely. So I think skiing, I think my first entry into skiing actually was just being invited by one of the suppliers on a ski trip.
Yeah.
So I then went on then to ski more regularly. So that definitely became more of a hobby for me.
Yeah.
And then cruising, I I think my first ship. I'm trying to think what my first ship would have been. I think it wasn't Ocean Village. There was another ship, but yeah, got to sail on Ocean Village.
Yeah.
Sailed on a number of cruise lines over that period. Started to understand it, and then again, all the misconceptions and the fears they just dissipate. There's nothing to be afraid of. It's no different to anything else. Actually, customers, and especially the age demographic relating to cruise, one thing we've got in common when we talk to them is they love talking about cruising, about holidaying, and they also love teaching. So you know what? You realize in sales, if you don't know the answer, ask the customer. The customers are more than happy to kind of lend you
Want to show
support
you their
through the process.
knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a competition. They want to buy. We want to be able to offer them the best that we can offer. And if that means that we work with them and they assist us initially, and obviously as time goes on, you become the specialist, you understand the product, and then you're bridging that onto the staff that you employ and you're growing. But it
Yeah.
just meant that the business plan that we initially had kind of went out the window because all of a
Yeah.
sudden we'd got a capability called ski that wasn't in the plan. We didn't realize there was going to be any relationship between Fast Track and the cruise industry.
Yeah.
So yeah, we just found ourselves in a much more fortunate position that we had choices that could lead us to how we would
But
distribute.
but but you're being quite modest, really, because I know you're saying it just sort of happened, but you had to obviously spot those opportunities, like like P&O launching a brand for people who didn't cruise, and you obviously, do you think you are quite good at spotting when there is an opportunity, even if you don't know it's going to make
Yeah.
money, but it's you'll take that risk.
I think for me, I kind of tend to I look at the world on a regular basis in a very broad way. And I'm not looking for anything in particular. It could be watching TV, it could be talking to a friend, it could be anything. And I'll constantly email myself with ideas. I'll do it in the middle of the night. I'll wake up and so I'm constantly emailing ideas that may lead to nothing, may lead to something. In terms of building the business, one thing I've learned is you have to get used to taking risks. And when it comes to taking risks, the first question to ask is, what's the worst case scenario? So if I go on this journey and it fails, where am I and can I cope with that? And if I can cope with that, then move forward. Because the benefit, and again, it's a numbers game, and it truly is a numbers game. Even today with Imagine, we do a lot, we evolve a lot, and most of the things we try don't work. But the ones that do work, they turn out to be much more valuable than those that
Tend to
don't
work
work.
very well.
Just
All
if
right,
really
so
understand.
bring us up to speed then, because clearly at Fast Track you were doing very well, and it caught the attention of the Virgin Group. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yep. So again, one of the areas that I'm always conscious of is what's my skill and where do the skills go outside of my capabilities. So we got to a stage at Fast Track where I felt we needed some more financial understanding of the business. So I employed a company who provide like part-time FDs, but really high caliber, but you only use them for maybe 4 days a month. So they
Okay.
would cost as much as a full-time FD. You wouldn't be able to afford them in an SME world, but you can afford them 4 days a month and they just accelerate. So they were able to showcase to me really quickly how we could maneuver the business and that cruise was really going to be a way forward for us. The holiday side of the business was probably the least appealing for us financially in terms of growth, and ski was also showing.
What, just because of the margins were very small
Yeah,
on
our
holidays?
capability, just in terms of ROI. So,
Yeah,
what we're getting out for every pound we invested.
yeah,
And their advice was you need to spend more. The market's, far bigger than your kind of well, your proportion of the market is tiny, so you can afford to kind of invest more money. And they said at that time, I remember them saying, it's really unusual for us as part-time FDs to come up with a summary document that says spend more money. But in your case, our advice is you need to be spending more money and specifically on cruise. So that's what we did. And then they also talked to me about, what are your exit plans? I hadn't considered an exit plan. I hadn't considered, that anybody would ever want to buy our business. We never built it for that purpose. But when you start to question yourself about what's my objective, they then get you to go down to, well, what kind of business, particularly if you can specify names, who might buy your business if these are your attributes? And I came up with two names, and one was Virgin. And to fast forward that 18 months later, we completed the sale to Virgin. So,
amazing.
so yeah, so it kind of gave me the understanding of building for a purpose,
Yeah,
the understanding that to do that, you need to be very focused on the data, and every decision you make, even if some of those decisions today are not going to show any fruit for a long period in the future, everything should drive towards an outcome down
okay,
the
yeah.
road, rather than if you're not
Which you
careful.
hadn't started out like that, but that's what you learned along the way, and that became a focus.
Yeah, I think you start off, you throw your net out, you're quite random. Obviously, you're looking for triggers and things that work, but they're still quite random and you're very easily diverted and excitable. I
Yeah,
think, when you start business, and you have to learn to kind of grow into that overall kind of how does a business function? What are the levers? How are we going to grow? What are the opportunities? How do we distribute? How do we build? Who are we from a product perspective? What do customers think of us? So there's a big learning curve and a big growing up kind of
yeah,
journey to go on, because at that point now you're 120 staff in,
yeah.
you're
Responsible for a lot of people. Yeah,
you're responsible and people are expecting you to have answers to questions and no longer have you got the flexibility that you had when you started.
yeah,
So that's the negative. The positive is you are now running a business that's sustainable and you can start to think about the future being a longer period of time rather than tomorrow.
yeah. The hand to mouth side of things. Okay. So did you stay with the business for a short period after it was acquired? And then perhaps just tell us then how you must have then left and thought, well, hold on, I can do this again.
Yeah, so I stayed on. I stayed on with Fast Track as we transitioned into Virgin. So we became Virgin Holidays Cruises, and once that evolution had done, I then decided to leave. And I had a period of non-compete, and then I knew I wanted to get back in, but I wanted to be different. So with Imagine, there were two key drivers because I didn't want to end up on a treadmill of, well, I've done this before, but I'll just do it again because it's comfortable.
Yeah,
It was more a case of I remember going out to the cruise lines during my year out and asking them, who would I be if I were to be different and deliver what you need that perhaps you don't have today? So the two things that seem to come along consistency is number one, you'd probably be servicing more source markets than just the UK. So you'd be more international because as a cruise industry, we're very much international.
yeah,
And in terms of product differentiation would be good as well. So, being slightly different. So we knew from the off that we wanted to create a point of difference. We didn't know what that meant. And that was going to be a task we'd have to try and understand. And then we knew from day one that as soon as we could, we'd start opening up other markets. We didn't know where they would be, but we knew we wouldn't wait years and years. It would be
yeah,
something we'd start to understand because again, those would be learnings we'd need to have to build out the capability
yeah.
of going
And
forward.
and let's just remind people then, so it was South Africa and Australia. I mean, did they have anything like you at the time there? Are they a little bit behind the UK at the time?
Well, Africa was funny, and again, it's quite often it's luck, right place, right time that gets you to start to trigger the journey. So, knowing we wanted to be international, I happened to be on a Seabourn, one of the new ship launches, sailing around the Mediterranean, and there was a GSA on there for South Africa for Royal Caribbean, and he happened to have a very small agency in South Africa that was kind of there, not doing an awful lot. It was more of a hobby uh, rather than a serious business model. But what it did have is an office and six people, I think, were there.
Yeah.
And I explained to him that I'm really interested in learning, and South Africa sounds good. It's English speaking predominantly. Time difference is negligible. And he said, "You can borrow my business if you want to just understand it." So we came up with an agreement that I would borrow his business for a period of 6 months. I would operate his business like I would operate Imagine, and I would understand from that process if we had an opportunity, and any profit we made in that 6 months, he can have it all. And if it didn't work and there were debts to pay, I would take all the debts. So it was a no risk model for
No
him.
risk for him. Yeah,
No risk
absolutely.
for him.
Just,
So we
just remind us of the dates of this, Robin, just to get that clear. So when did you set up Imagine, and then when did you start in the other
yeah,
markets?
so
You
we
said it was
started
very
Imagine in
quick.
2011 and we started in Africa in 2012. It was really
Right.
quick.
So very quick. Yeah.
Yeah, so Africa in the world of cruise, it's not an obvious market. It's
No.
not somewhere I'd suggest is going to give you or bear great fruits. But I flew over to Africa, and there were some obvious opportunities for us. And that's what it is. It's about understanding how is the market behaving? Why does it behave like that? Is it because it just does, or is that because what the customer's asking? One of the things that seemed very weird to me, were two really, is every product that was offered, regardless of where in the world, every cruise that was offered was only offered as a cruise only. That seemed
Oh,
weird because the customers got to get to the ship somehow and probably stay
yeah.
in a hotel. So that was an opportunity. We could curate a holiday. And secondly, the cruise only prices that were shown in the currency of the cruise line. So there was nothing advertised in South African rand. It was
No.
either in American dollars, euros, or sterling. I'm like, well, hang on a second. As a customer, I now need to get a
Do the
calculator,
conversion. Yeah, and get the calculator out.
get
So
the conversion. Now I need to figure out how much a flight costs. Now I need to understand if I need to book a hotel. So I said, look, I think what we're going to do, we're just going to sell it in rand.
yeah.
We understand the risk associated with the currency, so we'll make sure we cover that risk. And we're just going to offer it as a package holiday. So it's going to be air, land, and sea. And that's effectively what we did from day one, and it worked fabulously.
I mean,
Um,
it feels like, I mean, I'm not all respect, but those things feel quite sort of like obvious and like simple thing to do, but it obviously hadn't been done by anybody else and bore fruit.
Well, it's the irony of, and one of the things I often say to people about if you're looking to expand internationally, for me, the UK is the hardest market I've ever been in. And that's
Because
consistent.
of the competition and the discounting and
I don't think it's because of the competition. I mean, obviously the competition plays its part, but um, it's generally because we're setting our ways in the UK. We don't like change. So finding opportunities, most people's immediate answer is, well, why would I? Whereas when you go overseas, and the same is true if we get later to talk about Australia, within the first year of Africa, we'd built a website, we'd curated these holidays. I'd got partnerships, digital partnerships. I'd agreed a breakfast show, a TV breakfast show slot every day on
wow.
their breakfast show. We'd entered into a retail agreement with a company called Stutterfords, which is like the equivalent of Debenhams. Everywhere I went and knocked on a door, the first answer was, come in, and
Yeah.
then how do we make this work?
Yeah,
So
why not? Why not?
why not
Whereas
do
in
it?
the UK, it's more
And you were
caution.
probably the only person asking the question. And a lot of the questions I would ask overseas are questions that already existed in the UK. So there were already tie-ups in retail with people like Virgin and Crony.
Yeah.
They'd never had that question. And a lot's true of a lot of the other partnerships we talked about. TV had been done. I've been, part of TV previously with Sky Travel and a number of other TV stations, but in Africa, nobody had really approached the TV stations to work in conjunction with them in a different way. So for them, it's an opportunity for them to create a point of difference within TV
Yeah.
in the same way as it for us was an opportunity to speak to a different audience. So generally, you're looking at opportunities that work for both us as a company, but also for the partner you're looking to partner with.
Brilliant. And so then was it a similar experience in Australia and then obviously later Dubai as well? So
Yeah, so after Africa, we then had the 51% sale of the business to Donata. Again, similar to before. What's our exit plan? Who might buy?
who approached who? Did you
Donata.
think they're not? Yeah, but did
Yeah,
you think were they on your list?
yeah. I had a list of one, and it was Donata at that time. So
But they
it
were
was
very acquisitive at that time,
they
weren't they? They
were,
were coming, yeah,
yeah, and I think that's why my theory at that point was having gone through the journey in fast track with Imagine, I wanted us to be bigger, more successful, more profitable. And I felt that actually having a partnership, I didn't want to sell the business, but having a partner would give comfort and maybe capabilities to accelerate that.
yeah.
So
And with it being 51, I'm sure that's what they wanted, but you didn't lose any control, even though had the minority stake.
yeah, it's just a Dubai government requirement that they own 51%. But
Okay. So yeah. So you still had autonomy to run the business.
yeah, and Donata for us over the years. So that was in 2015. So we've been partners of them now for what, 8 years. I mean, honestly, they couldn't have been better for someone of my characteristic, and it may not suit everybody, but I think the way we've always managed to get it to work is predominantly we are able to go on our journey and build our business in the way we think that's best to do. We're able to strategize in the way we think things may work, but equally now and again we need support. And that may just be advice, that may be the opening of a door. Do they know somebody that works here that can get me in? And in or even opening up in Australia is a great example where they were able to just make that process of opening an office way easier than it would have been.
Right.
So
Okay.
they've been brilliant with us. So we opened an office in Dubai initially just because we'd done the sale with
Oh,
Donato, and
yeah,
then
of
very
course.
quickly went over to Australia, and we decided to open an office in Brisbane. So Brisbane, then again, the normal kind of mechanism of running a business. We don't know what we don't know, so go over, build upon, understand the market from a product perspective because every market's slightly different. Throw out the net of distribution, gain all the data. We're massively data driven here at Imagine, massively data driven. And we use the data to make as many decisions as we can. So
Yeah.
what are people buying? Why are they buying it? How frequently do they buy? How much do they pay?
And give us an idea now, Robin, of which I guess the UK is still your biggest market, but what are the size of the other source markets that you work in?
So Africa, so during COVID, we decided with Africa, obviously the world was difficult during COVID anyway. And I decided that Africa was going to really struggle, much more even so than the UK. So we decided to reorganize it as a satellite. So still today, predominantly, not in totality, but predominantly the Africa office operates as a satellite for UK. So UK customers go on the Africa site. In Australia, Australia now represents about 30% of our turnover. We've got an office in Brisbane, which is where we launched initially. And then I did an acquisition in
Oh, yes, that's
2017.
right. Planet Holidays.
Yeah, in Perth. So we have the call center now in Perth, and all the other attributes, service, product, flights, etc., all sit in Brisbane. So very different market, but even though each of these markets is different, we all conform to the overall success, which is the product differentiation. We've stabilized that into a structure that we can all talk internally about. So we effectively have categories, which is we have cruising experience, cruising stay, cruising events. Those categories have themes. So cruising experience has rail and touring. Cruising stay is just pre and post, and then cruising events can be on land, can be on ships. And then every source market now understands through a test and measure process within each of those categories and themes and USPs. So within rail, which trains, you go through a process of understanding what your local market wants out of that bucket, which trains, which
Yeah.
themes, what kind of volume, which distributors work well with each of those product types as well.
Okay.
And that's how the
And do
business
you
now
sell
runs.
much in Dubai, or is that mainly just an office
We
there?
closed that down in COVID again. It was something that if we were going to get through COVID, it was, everybody focused on the areas that we needed to focus
Yeah.
on. That was Australia and the
Okay.
UK.
So UK and Australia. All right. Well, while we're talking, I want to talk all about the product that you've just listed in
Yeah.
those three areas. But before we do, let's just continue just to finish off with the Donata ownership then. So they've obviously taken a bigger stake than the 51 they originally took in 2015 then.
Yeah, so myself and Natalie are the shareholders, were the shareholders of Ever 49. And I think that COVID for us as a company, us as individuals, like everybody else, it's not a pity me story. It's typical of the industry, was
Yeah.
horrendous.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of taught us both that we need to be locking in some cash selfishly. We need to be a bit selfish, having come out, and to give you an indication now, we are trading in terms of profitability now twice as capable as we were pre-COVID. So last year for us was a record year. This year will beat last year. Next year's budget expectations are additional growth. So we're far more capable. The
Yeah.
journey.
But did you take on a lot of debt during that period, like most companies had to, or how did you
I
cope?
think it's funny because when I've been to a number of events, I've heard comments about, where you were probably, lucky the most, Robin, because you're part of the Emirates group and no doubt they funded. We didn't take on a pound of debt. We had
Oh,
no
wow.
debt throughout the whole of COVID.
Wow.
So we operated the business in a way that we attracted. I traded through the whole period, and we just pivoted. So in Australia, we closed the cruise brand down in favour of holidays, so that because people could travel locally in Australia.
Yeah.
That created a revenue stream. In the UK, as soon as the staycations came
Yeah.
about, Creation Staycations,
Yeah.
and in the world of cruise, we were booking people, typically 12 to 18
Further
months in advance.
further ahead.
So cash flow was constantly coming in. People were
Yeah.
booking and happy to book. And the theory was that, again, going back to age demographic, COVID, lockdowns, people are lonely. People want something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Can't think of anything better than a holiday, even if it may not happen. Going back to the period of COVID, nobody knew what the future would hold.
Yeah, we
We
weren't
all,
sure when it would be all lifted, were we? But people were still happy to commit further out, I guess.
yeah, and
And did
you're
you say to
excited
them
about
if
the
it
holiday.
and so I was going to say, did you say to them, look, if it doesn't go ahead, don't worry, we'll push it forward. So they had that
Yeah,
trust in you that it
yeah.
would
So
come at some point.
anybody that was impacted during the COVID period, it was either a case of we can mitigate you to the following year,
Yeah,
or if you want a refund, you can have a refund. So those were the two
brilliant.
pots people
Okay.
fell into. So
So no
so
debt,
yeah. So,
but you still thought you wanted growth, so you needed a bit more from Donata.
well, no. So I think for us, so no debt, trading really well. But selfishly, myself and Natalie, I didn't realize that, we could go from having a very sustainable, well-placed business in January 2020 to this business may not survive when it comes to June 2020. So independently, we wanted, having gone through that pain, having come out as strong as we are, we felt that we need to cash in some of our chips
Cashing. Okay.
personally, but we didn't want to leave the company. We're excited about the jobs we do. We love it. We're excited about the growth. COVID has gifted us with capabilities we'd never have had it not been for COVID. In terms of product curation, the product variations we now have, the partnerships we have with some of the entertainers. There's a whole plethora of benefits this business now sits and holds as capabilities that we were just not going on that trajectory prior to COVID. So we would be here as a very different business.
So a silver lining. I mean, I know nobody would want to go through it, but it sounds like you've had some good learnings and opportunities from it.
I think it's like everything in life. As much as, there were many reasons to think as that whole process kind of as a negative experience. And but it was the best apprenticeship I've ever had. In terms of how much did I learn, and not only me, but the team, how much did we learn in 2020 alone
Yeah.
about us, about customers, just the complexity, a phenomenal amount. And the good thing is
Yeah.
that learning is not isolated to COVID. We've got that understanding and we take that forward with us. So we're just a more capable business in general.
It's very interesting how often you say the word capable. It's an interesting word, and it's a very positive one. All right. So how much does Donata, what's Donata's stake now in the business?
Yeah, so myself and Natalie broadly diluted our shares by 50%.
Okay. All right. Okay, so let's pick up on the products then and why you are unique in what you're doing.
Yeah.
You mentioned there's obviously the cruise and stay, there's the cruise and rail, and then the cruise and entertainment. Of course, the cruise and entertainment side was brought to all of us in full glory at the Globes for the last couple of years, because you brought some of your fabulous partnerships to us at that event. Catherine Jenkins, first of all, and then Lulu earlier this year, which was phenomenal. So tell us about how you've divided the business up then and what the plans are going forward.
Yeah, so I think going back to where I spoke earlier about, I'm constantly looking for opportunities. So the entertainment side of Imagine started with me on holiday. I go to Dubai every year with a family. I normally stay at Jumeirah Beach, and for anybody that's been there's a big grass area in front of the Burj Al Arab. And I was just walking from the Sun Lounger to Wild Wadi with the kids, and there was an Indian wedding on this grass embankment. And it was unbelievable. I mean, literally, it just stopped you in your track. And the backdrop of the Burj Al Arab, the ornateness of just the way it had been laid out for the gala dinner, and there'd been 2 stages placed in it. And for me, it just was a kind of light bulb moment of what could we do? I know we don't do entertainment, but how amazing would it be if we did a concert here? And we were putting a lot of footfall through Dubai at that time. So I just went back to the office and said, right, I don't know how we're going to do this, but we're going to host a concert in Dubai. I think something classical will be great. Who's popular? Let's have a look online. Okay, Catherine Jenkins. Let's see if we can get Catherine. And that was really our first one. And we sold it out within a matter of a couple of months. And then a
I was
year
going to say,
later.
because the commitment to booking her and
Yeah.
then booking, I guess, that venue space, that must not come cheap. So, and then I guess you had to partner with a cruise line that was wanted. Well, did you have to take the whole ship? Did you
No,
just
I
take
think
the allocation or?
I think we had, because they're quite intimate, our concerts. So I think the first concert was about 450 people. And I think we had customers traveling from 2 different cruise lines on 2 different holidays, but both
Okay. And
landed.
then they all met in the, okay.
Yeah, and I
Amazing.
think what happened at that event is, so the first event, myself and a number of the team went to, and what you realize from that event is what you've created is something ridiculously special. They're just kind of looking around at the customers. We had numerous people with tears in their eyes, and they were tears of joy. They were in the moment. You could have heard a pin drop, and just that moment we'd captured kind of was the beginning of, this can't be a one-off. I think we've underestimated just how much adding this additional element to the holiday
Yeah.
could mean to a customer. And actually the problem over time became, I know that because I've been there and I've seen the customers, but how do you tell the customer that when they book? How do you sell that? And we've always found that quite difficult, but it triggered then a process of right now, where else in the world and whom else might we do this with?
It's
And
important
that,
to get standout, isn't it? We talked a bit earlier about the competition. So I guess having, and everyone's trying to offer something a little bit different with a bit of cruise and stay or however they do it. But this is taking it to another level. If you can say, well, actually, come on this Cunard cruise and listen to Catherine Jenkins sing in a private venue in the middle of the desert or whatever, that's quite amazing.
yeah, and I think one of the things, there's many things you learn across all the portfolio of the products, but within the entertainment is you realize quite quickly that artists can be hard work. So you're looking for partners in that world as well. So who can we partner with that is passionate about making this a success, that is willing to be above and beyond in the moment with the customers. So
Yeah.
intimacy, connecting with the customers. And I felt that, really we're offering an artist the opportunity to go somewhere pretty cool.
Yeah.
They're normally in theatres. They're going to be in a great venue for the artist, whether it was Catherine or one of the others. They loved it because it was more relaxing. That they could generally have a unique experience of their own at the same time because Catherine had never sung there before.
Yeah.
She'd never been in that environment, so for her it was memorable as well. So, but definitely there was demand to take that on a journey and to embrace the
So
concept and make that.
do you have a list of sort of artists that you are on your hit list or people that you
Yeah.
particularly want to see, or have you got everybody you want, or there's still people out there that you'd like to get?
No, so we've got our biggest charter goes next April. We've got a full ship charter with Princess, 3,500 customers on board, and we're just about to launch in the next couple of weeks for 2025. We've got two full charters, so 7,000 customers.
Gosh.
So we're
And what's the
constantly.
hook then? Who are they? Is there an artist on board that they've
Yeah, so
signed
there's
up
going to
for?
be. We're just finalising. So on board 2024, we've got Anton and Erin from Strictly.
Yeah,
We've
amazing.
got Russell Watson, and we've got I think who the other one is. We've got one other, and then for 2025, we're just in the process now of finalising those artists. But it varies massively,
So
and
so you take the charter, then you final. So that's the process. You take the charter, you just take the risk, you decide you're going to do it, then you secure the artist, and then you market the hell out of it, I guess, to your customer base and beyond.
yeah, that broadly that's it. And then it's a case of making sure we've got different different approaches to who those artists might be. So some might be comedic, some might be
Yeah.
classical, some might be rock. And I think during the period of COVID, so when cruise resumption came back in 2021, over the next 18 months, I think we did 20 charters.
Gosh.
So
Wow.
I think we used about 40 different artists from everything, literally every conceivable, kind of accident. We did 80s charters, we did
Yeah.
rock, we did classical, we've done Michael Ball, we've done a whole plethora, but we've got a
You
list of, sorry.
I imagine you could never have dreamed that this would be where your business would end up, and presumably this is where you see it continuing in this vein, or have you got
Yeah.
another avenue you're
I
looking
think
at?
the question was, is it a COVID bubble? And I think many of the things we did in COVID, that was the question we asked ourselves a lot is, is this a bubble called COVID because people are restricted in what they can do, or is it sustainable? So we know these things are sustainable.
Yeah,
We've got the benefit now of not only can we sustain that on ships, but we can also extend that on land. So we can bring in the holiday brand as well as the cruise brand.
yeah.
And in Australia, we've done things that are even more exciting than the UK. So over the past 2 years, I think we've held something like 6 or 7 concerts at Ayers Rock.
Oh,
Unbelievable backdrop. We've had
amazing.
private islands in Fiji where we've held festivals. So, it's been a really exciting process. And I
Have,
think,
so I was going to ask, have the team had to acquire these skills to
yeah,
be, or have you had to employ specific people who are, used to dealing with entertainment and, event organization, or how's that work in terms of your overall team?
yeah. So I think what's happened is it's grown. So before COVID, we had done the concerts, one a year
Yeah,
maximum, a couple of people. Now in COVID, we created, so in the business today, we've got a whole events team.
yeah.
So when we say we put on an event, we literally hunt down the location, we build the structure, or we source the structure, we get the structure built, we then source the artists, we manage the process, and then we operate the event, as and when it's
Big
played.
undertaking, isn't it? It's not just selling a cruise
Yeah,
and seeing them
but
off.
I think what it does as a brand, because it represents probably 3 to 5% of our sales overall, the
Yeah,
collective nature of all the events. But what it does is it gives us another point of difference. So
yeah,
overall, the whole product curation is more than just the cruise concept, where it's cruise plus rail. So the Orient Express, for example, I think this year we will have charged. Well, 2024 is now sold out. We did maybe 8 to 10 full charters on the Orient Express.
gosh.
So
Okay.
rail for us is massive.
Yeah.
We're just about to launch next year a TV series in Australia focused on rail. So we've had a whole film crew flying around the world for the past 9 months on board, every luxury scenic train that there is, and that's being curated into a TV series. So what we're allowed to do is continue to evolve the product capability, but within the parameters of the categories and themes that we've got. There are still loads of gaps, loads of things we've not done that will continue to evolve, which will then back up the kind of
Yeah.
the
All
growth
right.
of the business.
I'm conscious of time, Robin. So let's just talk about that, the future then. What does the future hold for Imagine? Maybe just short term and then a bit, maybe because you're obviously an
Yeah.
ambitious man that has all these ideas. So and I'm sure you don't want to give them all away either, but what are you sort of what's waking you up in the night and you writing down on your little bit of paper at the moment?
But the interesting thing is we've got to the business where we're kind of circa 200 million turnover now broadly as a business. We are predominantly offline. We have a lot of direct business that represents nearly 50% of our contribution. People will see us regularly in the national press. We've never up until now focused on digital. What would everybody else would consider kind of bread and butter to
Yeah.
social media, PPC. So over the past 3 months, I've been building a digital capability, a whole team, which are now in situ. So we'll be launching that capability in January. So that's one route that we'll be going down. TV,
I'm pretty
we've never.
surprised by that, by the way. I kind of expected you to be doing that already, but it's really interesting.
Yeah, so we've got all that growth to come of digital,
Yeah,
social, influencer, whatever that may be. And
yeah,
we've got all the assets already because of what we do. We naturally have capabilities that are very well suited
yeah.
to that kind of environment. Then the next journey we're going on is TV. So we will be launching our test and measure exercise within a TV framework across the Sky network. That will happen in January as well.
This would be Imagine TV, like your own channel where you
No,
can
not our
show.
own channel. No, we
Oh,
did we considered that, but I think phase one will just the people watching TV care about us as a brand and what we sell. Don't know, let's try. So we've created a template structure of the advert, and then we'll just kind of push different products into that and see what happens.
oh,
So
okay.
again,
So it'll be an advert that will go on other streams or channels, whatever. Yeah. Okay.
And then lastly, relatively short term, so certainly in the next 12 months, we'll start to consider and understand the B2B market, perhaps. I think may not be for the whole product portfolio, but certain parts of what we do, I think agents out there would work really well. When we talk about charters and events and things like that, things that are obviously different. I don't want to go and offer them something they can already do
They can
themselves.
do themselves. Yeah.
No point in that. I'd like to understand how we might sit within a B2B environment and the ability, the agility we've got. We can effectively curate and create product portfolios that are bespoke to the B2B network. We just don't know what that means. So that
Okay.
would be a
So you
journey.
think you'll look that it's something of interest. You're going to look at it next year. When, have you got an idea when you might even sort of pilot that? Presumably you'd start with a particular agent or some
Yeah,
agents
no,
that,
I mean, none of this. I think when the time's right, the time's right. I think certainly between now, our financial year ends at the end of March. Between now and the end of March, digital and TV is my expectation of where we focus our attention.
yeah.
B2B, and then longer term, the next big step we'll take, again, over, in my eyes, the next 12 to 18 months will be the next source market, which will be the US. So who are we? If we're going to be capable in that environment? What do the Americans want from a brand like Imagine? Do we need to tweak the product range we have? Again, we're wholly flexible, so we'll recreate to fit in. What we do know is that the differentiation we provide is something that the market over there seems to lack to some degree. So I think we'd be
Okay.
different. But again, we don't know what we don't know. It will be a test and measure process. The results of that will determine, am I talking rubbish to you and it was a big flop? May well be. Or has it proven to be, on the other extreme, is it the most successful source market we've got? And those are the extremes we work with every time we
Yeah.
go with new. But
Yeah.
that's what makes it exciting. It's like, I have no idea. All I know is we track things in the right way. We're able to quickly alter our direction if we need to. And if something is proven successful, we're able to magnify that really quickly.
Really quickly. My goodness. Well, it doesn't sound like you're stopping anytime soon. It sounds like you just said it's so exciting. You don't know what's around the corner. There's all these opportunities. So it feels like you're going to be doing this for some time, Robin.
Hopefully.
Well, I'm honestly, what a remarkable story. You said at the start it was fascinating. You're absolutely right. It's a very interesting business, and we've loved working with you as well, in our little way at Travel Weekly. So we wish you all the best. I mean, brilliant business, and come back and tell us about it when you've done all these new things in the next 12 to 18 months.
We'll do it again. Thanks for having me on. It's been really fun, actually. And yeah, hopefully we'll have some positive news to tell you next year.
I'm sure you will. All right. Thank you so much, Robin. See you
Yeah.
soon.
Thanks, Lucy.